Hi, my dear listeners. Once again, this is retired Lieutenant Colonel Samsudeen Sarr, former commander of the Gambia National Army, being back today, Wednesday, the 15th of November 2023. Like I said in my last session, I have skipped 5 very interesting chapters to read chapter 23 today, which is about my sudden and unexpected retirement from the Gambia National Army in 1999, prompting my immediate departure from the country to the United States of America. So chapter 23, my sudden unexpected retirement from the Gambia National Army. The reasons for my retirement were rooted in a controversy surrounding my salary as commander of the Gambia National Army. I was newly promoted to the position of Army Commander, which came with its share of challenges. But it became a problem when my salary underwent the position's corresponding adjustments. I had ascended to the position after 2 years as Deputy Commander under Colonel Bakari Jara, who was also promoted to the position of the Gambia Armed Forces Chief of Defense Staff. The Chief of Defense Staff appointment marked the inception of a unique era within the country's military forces. So for a span of 6 months, I received a salary that corresponded with my new role. However, Colonel Jara all of a sudden unilaterally decided that my scale was excessive, urging a downward revision based on his perception of an appropriate rate. Although he failed to specify the precise benchmark, he was steadfast in his insistence that my earnings should be reduced to a lower rate. The salary I was paid mirrored the same amount he had received as the previous Army Commander, and it aligned with the standard scale paid to the nation's 3 service chiefs: the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, and the Commander of the Gambia National Army. When I confronted Colonel Jara about why he insisted on the reduction of my salary, he erupted into a rage, contending that the amount I was receiving was only for colonels and not for lieutenant colonels, my rank at the time. This assertion was indeed flawed, as the salary was inherently tied to the position of the Army Commander rather than to the specific rank. Our ensuing exchange was marked by heated arguments and frustrations as I attempted to explain the difference between ranks and appointment and their entitlements. As our argument got heated in my office, the colonel stormed away, leaving me baffled with unresolved questions and a simmering tension. Clearly, officers were strictly prohibited from engaging in disputes with their superiors. Thus, my decision to confront and argue with the new CDS and my boss was unacceptable, despite the fact that his actions directly contradicted the regulations outlined in the Gambia Civil Service Act, a fact discreetly confirmed by senior government officials who had consulted or quoted the act. The Minister of Finance at the time, Mr. Mara Jara, the Secretary General at the President's Office and Head of the Civil Service, Mr. Samba Mbake, and the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Defense, Mr. Fajao, whom I consulted, provided me with the reference clauses in the Gambia Civil Service Act that invalidated Colonel Jara's authority or anyone in the government to reduce my salary. In fact, Colonel Jara had gone to the Accountant General's office insisting that the salary reduction should take effect in my next paycheck. But the Accountant General maintained that he couldn't implement it without a formal letter from the Ministry of Defense, which had initially provided formal approval via a letter for the salary increment and instructed them to do so. The colonel kept on emphasizing that the decision had come directly from the president himself and should be executed without the need for a formal letter. All those senior government officials privately contacted me, seeking an explanation for the situation between my boss and me, as they found his insistence on breaking government regulations to reduce my salary without following proper procedure to be illogical. His persistence eventually prompted me to confront him about the issue in my office, which resulted in a heated exchange. Until then, my boss had been acting as if everything was in order regarding our new promotions and the entitlements that came with them. However, the discrepancy in his salary calculation remained unresolved at the ministry, owing to the introduction of the Chief of Defense Staff position within the Gambia Armed Forces. Subsequently, I came to learn that after leaving my office, he had immediately gone to the president and falsely claimed that I had physically assaulted him, nearly causing a severe injury to his arm. Soon enough, this narrative began to spread like wildfire, evolving into a distorted tale where I had allegedly brutally attacked him and broke his arm. The scenario of Lieutenant Colonel Samsudeen Sarr purportedly assaulting Colonel Bakari Chara and breaking his arm was undeniably worrisome, given Colonel's status as the highest ranking figure in the armed forces and his physical superiority over me. It's understandable that the president may have been genuinely alarmed if Jara had conveyed this fabrication to him. This prompted an immediate response from the president, who acted swiftly from his hometown of Kedola. He instructed the Secretary General, Mr. Samba Mbake, to retire me on the same day. Mr. Mbake, like I said, was well informed about the situation and had consistently assured me that in his understanding, contradicting Colonel Jara's assertion that such a directive had been given. The president had not instructed any reduction in my salary. Despite his assurances that the case will gain no traction, when the president order arrived for my retirement, Mr. Mbake acted swiftly without questioning the rationale or standing against its legality. At that juncture, I was uncertain whether President Chani eventually learned the truth. However, my concern was overshadowed by the fact that I found myself expelled from the army, evicted from my residence, and stripped of all authority and privileges that day. Yet, I recognized that my challenges were far from over, particularly considering Colonel Jara's disturbing and irrational change in behavior. You see, after my release from detention and reinstated to the Gambia National Army in 1995 and following the unceremonious departure of Captain David Costa, his former right-hand man, our relationship developed into a genuine cordial one. It transformed me from being his subordinate to a partner and confidante to the colonel. Despite his seniority, he treated me as an equal often displaying an openness and affability that occasionally left me feeling embarrassed. This level of trust and autonomy he accorded me solidified our partnership beyond the ordinary. I had dedicated my total loyalty to him, consistently offering my best counsel whenever he required it. I even allowed him to claim full credit for the exceptional work I had clandestinely executed, unbeknownst to him. Occasionally, however, deceitful individuals attempting to disrupt our harmonious rapport will attempt to flatter me with remarks about the Army's potential decline in my absence, yet I always rejected such notions, underscoring that without the Colonel's trust and confidence in me, my purported specialized skills would have remained unnoticed and unacknowledged. Our post-work hours will extend well into the late night as we meticulously devise strategies and brainstorm ideas to enhance the Army's management and positive reputation, especially in the post-coup d'etat period. Our conversations ventured into the personal territory, spanning topics such as family, spouses, children, and even our parents. In light of all these connections, it was difficult for me to understand how all of a sudden the colonel was acting the way he did. I couldn't help but also question why the president hadn't given me an opportunity to defend myself against the allegations prior to such an extreme verdict. I received my retirement letter from the President's office, officially signed by the Secretary General, Mr. Samba Bake. The reasons originating from the President himself were not stated. The letter had been delivered to my house by the Gambia National Army Military Office Commander, Lieutenant Da Costa, on June 22nd, 1999, around 5 p.m. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I opened the letter, while the MP stood at attention waiting. With the large number of military police he came with, I thought they had received additional orders to apprehend and detain me once again, which triggered memories of my previous unjust arrest and detention in 1994 that I fervently wish to avoid repeating. Upon reading my retirement letter, I inquired about the timeline for vacating the commander's house, my government allocated house, along with my family. Lieutenant Da Costa, still standing at attention, responded, "The Chief of Defense Staff has stated tomorrow, sir." I entered the bedroom where my wife was nursing our 1-month-old son and shared the contents of the letter with her. Together with my wife, Fatima, I had 3 sons, Muhammad, 11, Jamil, 8, and Samsudeen, a mere 1-month-old. I sincerely prayed in my heart, seeking divine intervention to guide my family and me through this challenging tribulation. Muhammad and Jamil, slowly coming to realize my significance within society, found themselves bothered by the abrupt turn of events. My wife's disbelief was displayed. She stood momentarily speechless before her emotions overcame her and tears streamed down her face. She struggled to comprehend the unjust treatment I had endured. She bore witness to the utter dedication I had poured into my work, tirelessly serving the very people now orchestrating the destruction of our lives. She had been closely following the unfolding of the issue concerning my dispute with CDS Colonel Bakari Jara over my revised salary, fully aware that the fault lay with the CDS. Her conviction was unshakable, just as mine. The president's decision to cast me aside without affording me the chance to present my side of the story left us both bewildered. Internally, I have a little remorse or regret. A peculiar sense of tranquility nestled within my heart, convincing me that this turn of events was somehow for the best. I made a resolution decision, no matter the consequences, present or future, that I will never wear the GNA uniform again, nor continue to serve within the Gambia Armed Forces. On that same night, the Chief of Defense Staff also issued an order for the withdrawal of all guards stationed at my house and the confiscation of the official vehicle that had been assigned to me and my family during my tenure as commander. The sudden turn of events sent a chill down my spine. It felt as though my family and I were being cut off from our usual safeguards, leaving us vulnerable and exposed, having served as commander for nearly a year. The unsettling reality dawned on me that any disgruntled individual with a personal vendetta could potentially breach our security. All firearms and ammunition at the residence were swiftly removed that very same evening. The event marked a turning point for me, solidifying the realization that the aspirations I held for the AFP's RC government were unattainable and unsustainable. My disillusionment with the administration led me to a final decision. I will never again serve as a soldier under President Jane again. Under President Jane's regime. Being expelled by the president left me with a singular path forward. The government structure and policies had intertwined with the nation itself since the Gambia's independence in 1965. While civilian rule in the post-independent era had its flaws, the military takeover in 1994 had intensified the shortcomings of the governance. As someone who had held a significant position within the military, I confronted a binary choice: leave the country or risk becoming ensnared in President Jane's coercive tactics. I had observed the fate of those once regarded as the president's closest allies. They had faced dismissals without explanation, reinstatements into ill-fitting roles, premature retirements, and a cycle of arrest and releases on dubious grounds. This pattern convinced me that realigning myself with the army, despite its significance, will compromise my integrity more than it will contribute to its success. There was later a notable incident where President Jane demoted a whole army general to the rank of a corporal, dismissed him from the army, and subsequently detained him at the infamous Mile 2 prisons. After a while, the corporal was released, re-promoted to the rank of general, and reinstated into the armed forces. General Dabo continued to serve until the end of the Jane regime in 2017, and he maintained his position during President Ahmadou Barry's government. Reflecting on this event, I realized that I could never allow my life or career to be manipulated in such a manner, regardless of the regime or head of state in power. Consequently, I had to make a principled departure from the military apparatus, seeking a path that would safeguard my commitment to ethical conduct and preserve the value I held dearly. There was little or nothing I could do to avoid facing serious problems without leaving the country. Crawling before the government to regain my position, as I had seen many people do, was not an option for me. This was especially true for civil servants and politicians who, out of desperation, with no other option, will do whatever it takes to secure their jobs. Unlike the average technocrat or politician in the government, I held the position of army commander, which set me apart. If my will or character were to be broken, I would lose the ability to establish my authority over my subordinates and would become unable to refuse unlawful orders from superiors. Carrying out illegal orders would transform me into the despised monster I had always feared becoming. This principle was instilled in us from the very beginning of our training at Fort Benning military camp in Georgia. After my enlistment following the Gambia National Army 16 weeks mandatory basic training, Major Ken Wright honored his word and sent me to America in August 1986 to do my infantry officer basic course. The syllabus emphatically warned all students never to obey illegal orders from their superiors, as doing so will make them equally culpable for the crime. This understanding further contributed to my decision to leave the country, fully aware that I might never return unless there was a change in the AFPRC government or in the leadership of President Haja Jammeh. Besides, staying in the country with nothing to do will inevitably make me a victim and will definitely subject me to President Jammeh's whims and commands. Refusing his job offer will bring even greater trouble, while accepting it would likely compromise my principles. Furthermore, no one in their right mind, whether in the public or private sector, will consider employing me without Jammeh's approval. Many Gambians had found themselves trapped in similar circumstances during that period, enduring the hardships rather than leaving the country. My mother was left bewildered by the abruptness of the changes. She placed the blame squarely on Colonel Sarr, and as usual blamed it on supernatural forces being at play. She was convinced that someone harboring envy towards my accomplishment had invoked the powers of a fetish or a marab, a spiritual practitioner known for casting malevolent spells. Seeking answers, she turned to her trusted personal marabout, who validated her fears and demanded a hefty sum of $6,000 to break the perceived course. This demand equated to more than a whole of my net monthly income as Deputy Army Commander. Although our nation is predominantly Muslim, my mother, like many Gambians of various faiths, held a strong belief in the potent spiritual capabilities of marabouts. In 1988, I had inadvertently shot myself in the right thigh, resulting in multiple fractures of my leg. My mother chastised me severely for not carrying the protective duties she had procured from different marabouts. In 1990, when I faced a court-martial and was demoted from the rank of full lieutenant to sub-lieutenant, she attributed my predicament to my skepticism towards the marabouts' powers and my reluctance to embrace their protective charms. Even during my arrest and subsequent imprisonment following the coup, My mother remained steadfast in her conviction, blaming my troubles on my perceived resistance to the supernatural. Now, with my sudden removal from the position of army commander, she clung to the belief that only a fetish or a marabout's intervention could restore my lost position. She refused to accept the incident as a natural course of events. She was devastated when I refused to even meet the marabout, giving a stern warning that if he dared to set foot on my residence, he would not be granted entry into the compound. No matter what, I firmly believe that the power of God transcended any influence that even the combined powers of all marabouts could muster. Gratitude was over me when my wife's sister, Samira, stepped in with timely assistance for our present predicament. With convincing words, she rallied her successful businessman husband to come to our rescue, and he didn't disappoint us. The next day of my retirement, he offered us a comfortable house where we relocated before nightfall. Recognizing the perilous and uncertain nature of the situation, I felt an urgency to preempt any potential escalation of the Chief of Defense Staff's anger, lest he issue another vindictive directive against me. The unfolding events made it clear that the possibility of being ordered back to Mile 2 Central Prison's room loomed ominously. Already having resolved to depart from the Gambia at the earliest opportunity, I knew I had to tread cautiously, managing the crisis before it spiraled beyond control. All the while keeping my intentions concealed from both the CDS and the President. My travel expenses were contingent on securing my retirement benefits, making this a delicate balancing act. So the following day, after my abrupt retirement, I decided to visit the Army headquarters to apologize to the CDS for any misunderstandings. His surprise and apparent embarrassment at my presence in his office were evident that morning. I sought for his forgiveness for our altercation, a gesture he accepted, albeit misunderstanding its intention. He believed I was seeking re-employment and assured me he would approach the President to find a suitable role for me. He didn't specify what that role might have been. Thank you, sir, for your generosity, I expressed, shifting the conversation to inquire about the timeline for receiving my retirement benefits. He summoned Mr. Lanjai, the Army accountant, to assist me in all matters starting immediately. He even suggested that I stayed at the Army commander's house for up to 3 months until I secured my own residence. I expressed gratitude and told him that I already moved to another place. On July 30th, 1999, I departed the Gambia, arriving at New York's JFK Airport on July 31. Before my departure, I received all my financial entitlements. By the time I left the Gambia, no official mention or explanation had been given for my retirement. Apart from my family, no one, including the President and the CDS, were informed of my departure. Only the independent private newspaper, The Point, briefly alluded to my retirement, offering speculative reasons for it. And that ends chapter 23. Till next time, folks, you all have a nice day.